All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Wednesday morning. Several accidents to report. One at Bluff Road, one at Garner's Ferry Road and I-77. Traffic lights are malfunctioning at Hugie and Divine. Another accident at Broad River Road in St. Andrews, as well as one at Pisgah Church Road and Bar Road, and then one last one at I-77 southbound and exit number 2. Today, high of 86 with some clouds. Tomorrow, mix of clouds and sunshine with high of 88. And then Friday, a high of 90. Right now, 62 in downtown Columbia here on the early game. Nine o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on the game. Jack, I think congratulations are in order. You've been working with us now for how long?
Probably about over a year now.
I just saw you finally got a key card where we don't have to let you in the front door anymore.
Yes. Thank the Lord. It's funny. I asked randomly after 2 days ago after the show, and I'm like, hey, can I just, what do I have to do to get a key card? Like I'll do anything. And it was just a simple, like, someone handed me a key card, and I'm like, all right, cool. So I have a key card. I've now used it twice, and yeah, I mean, the look on Jen's face was like utter shock that I had a key card. I'm like,
well, I get, because you used it yesterday too?
Oh, yeah, I used it yesterday.
Okay.
I don't think anyone noticed.
I didn't notice, and, I'm in here getting things switched over from show to show, but today I intentionally, was watching the door, because, oh, well, he's, not here yet. I want to make sure somebody knows that he's at the door to let him in, and you come flinging the door open. I'm like, know. Wow, he actually got a key card. How about that?
It's like you're the parent that I just don't have to text anymore.
Exactly. Like, I don't have to pick you up.
It's okay, Dad.
And
I'll walk home.
I don't have to pick you up from practice anymore or drive you to work. Like, you're independent now, which is great.
I know, man. I feel so accomplished, so happy. So glad to have the key card, and I'm glad to be back here and get myself into the building.
Oh, man. We got a lot to get into after a very interesting press conference from Coach Beamer yesterday, to say the least. Look, anytime you're talking about things coming off a loss, it's obviously going to be tense. I don't know if I expected what we got out of him yesterday.
I mean, me either, because typically the way it works is, let's say they lose, which they did this weekend. Saturday, he's pissed off, rightfully so. Sunday, it doesn't even matter whether they win or lose. Sunday teleconferences, he's just kind of the same, where he just has that same kind of monotone in his voice.
Well, he probably spent the entire day watching the film back of what went wrong the day before. So
exactly.
that aggravation carries over.
So yes, the aggravation carried over, and he was he was a bit snippy, I would say, yesterday. Typically on Tuesday he's refreshed, ready to go, all this, and he was. But then, you get some of the tougher questions in there, which I know Gamecock fans were, dying to have, and I think hopefully that delivered on their part. But, look, questions were asked and answers were given, but obviously he was probably not the happiest about it. So,
well, you asked the question that really got everything going, which we'll get into in just a moment, right after our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9. So, yes, yesterday, Of course, we knew the topic of the offense, particularly Sellers and his running or lack thereof this season, were going to be points of conversation. And, Jack, you asked a question mainly about Sellers in the pocket, but Coach Beamer did take the opportunity to air his thoughts on the narrative around LaNorris Sellers and his implementation in the offense when it comes to running the ball so far this season. And here's what he said.
As far as the pocket, I think he's done well. I think the South Carolina State game, I think I mentioned it last week, where there's a third down that we throw to Mike Smith, and he does a great job stepping up in the pocket and making throws. The protection was good the other night. Again, we had 2 sacks, and one of those was because another position missed an assignment, and the other one was because we had a bad snap that LaNorris had to fall on it. Other than that, the protection was good and the pockets were good. I don't know what conspiracy theories are out there, but I've never said, and no one in this building has ever said, we need to run the quarterback less. Like, I hear all this crap about they're not running the quarterback enough. We're calling the same goddamn plays we called last year, guys, and we're not saying we need to run LaNorris less. I'm not getting on you, Jack. I know there's like this conspiracy theory going back to the bowl game that we see it don't run LaNorris as much. We're running LaNorris plenty, and some of those are reads where LaNorris can hand it or pull it and keep it. Some of those are RPOs where he can run it or throw it. And some of those are called design runs that he runs. And I would say every week we want to do what we need to do to win the football game. We ran him the other night. We ran him against Virginia Tech. We ran him against South Carolina and South Carolina State. And teams aren't dumb either. In our mind, last week, we wanted to get the ball out of the Vanderbilt quarterback's hands on some of those zone reads. And these teams we play, they have good coaches, and a lot of them are going to say, don't let 16 carry the ball, because we've seen what happens when he carries the ball too. So we're doing what we got to do to win football games each week, and if that means running LaNorris, then we're going to run LaNorris. Or Luke, or Air, or Cutter, or Jimmy Francis, or Brandon Cunningham, or whoever we got in there playing quarterback.
Listed off all the quarterbacks right there at the end. First of all, good question, Jack. Thank you for asking that. That generated that exact response. Before we get into the specifics of what he talked about, what do we think of him talking about it in that way, right? Addressing the conspiracies, quote unquote, and having the defensiveness in the way that he kind of talked about that. How do we assess that answer?
Well, to be fair, I think I did ask also in that question, not just about him in the pocket, but also, do you guys feel like you need to run LaNorris more to be successful as an offense? And I think that kind of sparked the question. Like, I didn't want to outwardly say that, like, hey, like, you guys are just running LaNorris less. Like, what's up with that? Like, there's always a way to put these questions in. I don't like to piss people off, but obviously questions need to be asked, and, even if they're tough. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think it is... I don't know if it's warranted necessarily. I get what he's saying, because, look, that is what people talk about online, is that, hey, like, we need to run LaNorris more. We need to run LaNorris. He's not a pocket passer. This isn't the NFL, Shula. Like, I've seen the stuff online from people complaining about it. So I think he's right about that. But I think the fans are also right. I think they are right. They want to see their quarterback run the football more, and let's be quite honest. It has not felt like they have ran the football as efficiently as last year. Matter of fact, I saw a stat this morning, and we'll get into the one you sent me yesterday, Tyler. But Larry Williams from Tiger Illustrated posted this. He said LaNorris Sellers against Clemson last November, 166 net rushing yards on 16 carries, 10.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Sellers in 4 games this season, 64 yards on 35 attempts, 1.82 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. That's a problem.
Yeah, and that's my thing, is I understand Beamer defending his coaches, defending his players. That's his job. He's always going to do that. I think it's the defensiveness of the answer, though, where it makes it seem like you're trying to cover up something. You know what I mean? Like, hey, it's almost like telling people, hey, what you're seeing is not actually what you're seeing. Because, again, you look at the statistics there. We as fans, we as media people that cover this team can look and see that Sellers is not playing the same as he was a year ago. Now, again, our defense is accounting for him, trying to take him away, absolutely, which we'll get into those numbers coming up in just a second. But I think what aggravates a lot of people, and I've listened to the calls this morning that Elijah and Preston took, and you can read it on the message boards and tweets and all that kind of stuff. It's people don't want to be talked down to, right? And I feel like that answer is a way of kind of talking down to people like, hey, take off your tinfoil hats. You know, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing here, and you're not looking at what you think you're looking at. Like, there's a way where I think you can answer that question by saying, hey, I understand the frustration. I understand people's concerns about this, but hey, we're calling the same plays. We're attempting to do the same things. We're just not getting the same opportunities based on what the defenses are doing to try and take on ourselves away. I feel like that's an answer that more people can be satisfied with than kind of the backing to the corner and taking the defensive stance on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, look, he's probably. Can you really blame him though? I mean, look, he's the head coach. Like, he expects to, take criticism. Heck, he even had another really, really defensive answer about, people wanting coaches fired and stuff kind of towards the end of the press conference that we can get into. But, I mean, look, I understand it from the standpoint of, everyone's like kind of like really ticked off right now with the way Saturday went, and rightfully so. It was not a good enough game. The offense struggled to get into the end zone.
Yep.
And I don't think necessarily like it was bad play calling the entire game. I mean, they tried some stuff, and they were pretty good in the first half, and then Sellers gets hurt, and then everything changes, but that's no excuse. The offense still only put up 7 points, and look, you have to anticipate that people are going to be upset, and then they see these numbers of, like, Sellers is struggling to run the football, and, why aren't they running him more, all this and that. So a lot of issues right now, and it kind of just feels like hopefully this weekend they're able to get a win, because otherwise I feel like things are really going to start to boil over, and it won't be good next week.
So I dove into the numbers of what he's talking about with how they call plays this year compared to last year. I want to give more time for this, so we'll save it for the other side. But I relied on our SEC stat cat, Clark Brooks, who does have a thorough breakdown of each and every play called in every single game for SEC teams across the entire season. And I went and looked at those numbers to see how they stack up. And there are some differences between last year and this year, which we'll get into coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Beltry along with you on your Wednesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Starting Thursday, got a national cash giveaway contest. Going to be announcing keywords each and every day at 7, 9, 12, and 3, and 5 as well. And you'll be able to text in for an opportunity to win $1,000 5 times a day. So be listening for that starting tomorrow right here on the game. As we get into what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday, he was responding to the narrative out there about Lenore Sellers not running the ball as much, which, again, for anybody with eyes that's been watching this team, you can see there's a clear difference between what was happening a year ago and what's happening now. And you reference that game that Larry Williams of Tiger Illustrated, pointed out against Clemson, where he ran for $166, including that play that may be the most memorable play that he's made so far as a Gamecock, 3rd and Sellers, where he runs for the winning touchdown to help South Carolina pick up the victory. Well, that was the last game that Dow Loggins called plays, right? Mike Shula takes over as the OC for the bowl game, has been the OC for the 3 games so far this year. There's been a clear difference in how Lenore Sellers has been used. And again, teams are obviously trying to take him away. So that's something that Beamer is right about. But he mentioned things about RPOs and reads and all those kind of things still being as much a part of the offense as they've ever been. So yesterday I went on to SEC StatCat, Clark Brooks, who does a phenomenal job, where quite literally you can go in and look at any game any SEC team plays and see the specific concepts of every single play run in every game. I don't know how he does it. I think he's a one-man show, if I remember correctly. I don't know how he has the time and the ability to do all this, but he does, and I'm very thankful for it, especially in situations like this, because I was able to go back and look not only at what happened on Saturday, but the differences between last year and this year in terms of concepts that South Carolina is running. So in terms of RPOs, South Carolina is actually running more of them this year. So they've run them on 28% of plays this year compared to 20% last year. When it comes to read variations, South Carolina down a little bit, 23% compared to 32% from a year ago. But I would say, considering the fact that RPOs are higher, the read variations are a little bit lower, I think that kind of balances out to probably about even. So he's right. The concepts, for the most part, are largely the same a year ago. It's the execution of the plays that are different.
No, I fully agree with what you're saying here. I mean, it does feel different when they are being executed out there. So, look, are the numbers, when you look inherently at the rushing yards and stuff, and again, we have to take into account the sacks are incorporated into those rushing stats, which I wish they weren't, because I think it's the silliest thing in the world. That
the NFL doesn't do that.
No, the college football needs to change that immediately, because the numbers for rushing are probably actually a little bit better than, I think Sellers had over 60 yards rushing against Virginia Tech. When you count the 4 sacks, though, it goes down to about 20. So that doesn't really tell you the full story. And I feel like in that first game, we saw Lenoris run a good bit, especially on that first drive. He's blasting through guys. He's running into the end zone. That 3rd down run he had to kind of seal the game at the end was textbook of what we want to see out of Lenoris. But the last few weeks, I feel like we have not seen that the same. I feel like, especially when you watch the Vanderbilt game the other day in the first half, I feel like he stepped up and tried to make a lot of throws. And not that that's an issue at all. I don't have a problem with him throwing the football, because you need to throw the ball to win games. You can't just solely rely on his legs to win. I think that's the other common misconception that I think some people have, whether it's the coaching, Beamer or whoever, is that, yes, we want to see Lenoris run, but we're also fine, I think, if he throws the ball around. But you just don't want him to become just a primary pocket passer and that be it. You want him to utilize that skill set that he has.
So I went back and looked, and again, RPOs are actually being incorporated more this year than they were last year. But, it's called a run-pass option for a reason, because as the quarterback, you have the option to run the ball, either yourself, hand it off, or throw the ball in those situations. And I went back and looked at the 4 instances on Saturday, because, again, he only basically played 3 drives and 1 extra play because he got hurt on that fourth drive, right before halftime. So didn't get a full game scope of this, but according to SEC StatCat, he was a part of 4 RPOs on Saturday. And on those 4 plays, on drive number 1, the second play of the game, he reads the edge coming off the left side. It was chipped by Mo Brown, and he decides to hand it off to Rasul Faison, who squirts up the B gap for 11 yards. The play right after that, you had a trips bunch right set with the wide receivers. He glances at his screen option, which would have been Brian Rowe in this case, and decides to keep it himself. Sellers runs it up the B gap for about 8 yards with 1 broken tackle about at the line of scrimmage. So good play there. The play right after that, so 3 consecutive RPOs in a row. He looked off Donovan Murph, who was his option to the right side, I believe, and he scrambled to the outside for 1 yard, right close to the line of scrimmage, or right close to the first down marker. And then the last RPO that he ran would have been the second drive on play number 4, where Rowe was a screen option in the flat, and there was a free defender out there, so he opted not to do that, and he decided to hand it off to Rasul Faison, who gained 2 yards on the play. So that's kind of a variety where you see him throw the ball, or you see him run the ball. You see him look at these options to throw, and you see him hand the ball off to Rasul Faison as well. And again, playing quarterback is hard. Processing all that kind of stuff in mere seconds is not an easy thing to do. And while, again, what Beamer said is the concepts are still there in terms of, hey, we want, he still has the opportunity to run if he believes that's the best option on the play. I do think there's something to, if you've spent the entire offseason trying to develop him into a better all-around passer, more thinking into trying to make the passes work may make him more hesitant to want to keep the ball himself.
Yeah, no, totally. And I do agree with that. I feel like Carolina probably has tried their best to make sure because again, I think, did you bring up the point the other day? We were talking about this thing on Monday about, they're trying, building his arm for the NFL draft and stuff and trying to get him ready as a passer. I can't remember if we had that conversation.
I don't think that was us, but that narrative is certainly out there.
Yeah.
There's a thought that, hey, he's trying to make himself as best as possible for the NFL, which is why he looks different in the offense this year. Now, unfortunately, him being better at the NFL does not help you out here at South Carolina, which is going to be a concern for a lot of people if that is the case.
And we don't even know yet if he is going to go to the NFL draft. So, the focus should be on winning games right now, not about, trying to be the best passer and make it to the NFL and whatnot. And the interesting thing that Beamer did say at the end of that initial quote about the question I asked him was the fact that if they're going to do whatever it takes to win a football game, and if that does mean running Lenoris, then they're going to run Lenoris. But yeah, I feel like we should be seeing that by now a little bit more. Like, the criticism is warranted, I think, for running Lenoris a little bit more on these QB runs and letting him improvise and stuff. At the end of the day, though, the improvising is on Lenoris.
Sure.
Like, you can't just, it's not like it's Beamer's fault that Sellers decides not to run on a certain play when he may have a lane. That's Lenoris' decision on the field. So, as much as we talk about criticizing the coaching and stuff, at the end of the day, the players are on the field, they're the ones out there making plays or not making plays.
And I want to make it clear, there's nothing wrong with trying to make Lenoris Sellers a better passer. That makes you a better all-around quarterback. Like, that is perfectly fine, and I have no problem with that being a focus of this offseason, but what it in turn can do, and again, these numbers that we kind of put up here don't necessarily account for the scrambles that Sellers does have. It's really kind of talking about options where a designed run would be a part of the play. But one thing, the best plays he made last year was when the protection broke down or he didn't see his option at receiver, tight end, or whatever, when he just took off and ran. And there were so many times last year where he was dumping defenders over his shoulders and making wow plays that, we were raving about that next Monday. And you look over the course of that 6-game winning streak to end the regular season, I lost count how many times he made those kind of plays. Even before that, like the Alabama game and, games earlier on the season, we saw some of those things too, but it really started happening in those last 6 games of the regular season. But that's not necessarily by design. right? You call a play where he's sitting in the pocket for him to throw the ball. And again, you ideally want to have somebody come open, have the protection good enough to where he throws the ball, you have a big gain to whoever your options are on that play. But again, when things weren't there, he took off and ran. But when you're trying to develop him as a better all-around quarterback, that mindset of trying to stay in the pocket more, going through your reads, trying to find that option downfield, that may be making him more hesitant to take off on those plays that he wasn't afraid to do last year.
Maybe the protection just needs to break down more often for him to just come to the reality that, hey, you're gonna have to take off and run. I mean, I think that is ultimately. Yeah, I'll answer my own question. Like, do I think that he needs to run the football more for South Carolina to be successful on offense? Yes, I do. This offense cannot just be predicated on throwing the football around. Like, we know he can throw the football. We also know he threw an interception the other day in the red zone that he needs to, probably have a better read on. But also, I mean, when he's running the football, look at what Carolina did last year. And I know last year's last year, but they were so successful when it came time for him to make those decisions and run the football. So, not saying the first instinct needs to be run the ball, but like, we know it works. Why not? Why aren't we not seeing it more efficiently? But also, why are we just not seeing it more often?
Well, let me ask you this: if you are a defensive coordinator, let's say for Missouri, scheming up how to stop South Carolina this weekend, and you take Lenore Sellers out of the equation, and I'm not talking about the injury, which we'll get to in a moment. Let's just say he's playing this weekend, and you're scheming up to make sure he does not run the football. Is there anybody else on this offense that you're afraid of that's really going to do damage to you?
No. I mean, that's also part of the other side of the coin here is that defenses are much more ready now to try and stop Sellers in the run game because they know it's a threat than, last year, right? And part of it, I think, is just because there are no established, like Nick Harbor is a real weapon, but like besides that, can you really say anybody else in this offense is a true force to be reckoned with?
No, I can't. I mean, I saw good things out of Faison last week, but that was one game of him being the bell cow back. That's not enough for me to say, oh man, well, I'm afraid he's going to torch us for, 180 yards this weekend or something like that.
To be able to make Lenores a threat once again, you have to see more out of the other guys in this offense.
Yep.
You got to be able to throw the football. You have to have Faison, these other guys. I need to see a 100-yard game on the ground from one of these running backs this weekend.
That would be fantastic and would help out whoever the quarterback's going to be, because we don't exactly know if Sellers is going to play this weekend or not. We'll let you hear what Beamer had to say about him and concussion protocol as we carry on with the extra point coming up next on your Wednesday here in the game.
Yeah, we have a pretty consistent policy that if you don't practice Tuesday or Wednesday, you're not going to play. I just don't think, I don't care who you are, that if you don't get out there and practice on Tuesday and Wednesdays especially, it's really tough to just practice on Thursday. Practice on Thursday is important here, but it's a little bit of a shorter day, and the bulk of your game plan is in on Tuesday and Wednesday. So whether you're an offensive player, defensive player, special teams player, we need to be able to see you do something on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Points. Hour ahead, and Jack Belcher along with you on your Wednesday here on the game. Coach Beamer yesterday talking about the policy when it comes to practicing in general for South Carolina and when you need to be back on the practice field if you're going to end up playing this weekend. Now, we never got a confirmed yes or no if Lenore Sellers practiced yesterday. I would imagine, based off the context of that answer, he probably was not on the field yesterday. Is that fair to guess?
Yeah, I would probably say that is the case. I mean, we'll find out more in the SEC injury report, which does come out at 8:10 tonight. But I want to bring up an interesting discussion point. I know you have this in the notes here, but think about it yesterday. Go back to last year when these two teams played. Remember how Brady Cook was listed as questionable all the way up into Saturday? I mean, it was game day, a few hours before the game, and we still didn't know if he was going to be playing or not. What if we get the same situation here? Because Shane is very calculated in the way he says and some of the things that he does. It would not shock me at all if there's a little bit of pettiness here to where it's like, hey, we're going to keep Lenore's questionable up until Saturday.
I remember leading into that Missouri game last year where we did talk a lot about, hey, you're probably going to be seeing Drew Pine this weekend play instead of Brady Cook. And then, yes, in the minutes before the game when they're warming up, hey, Brady Cook's good to go. And went out there and played a really, really good game and very nearly led Missouri to another win over South Carolina. So, yes, and look, Eli Drinkett's not the only one that has played games with the availability report. Lane Kiffin's done it too. Plenty of other coaches have finagled this in a way to keep the opponents guessing. So I wouldn't put it past Shane Beamer to try and play some gamesmanship back, saying, hey, you messed with us with your quarterback last year. We're going to do the same thing with ours this year.
Wouldn't be surprising at all now. Again, we're saying all this without knowing what the injury report is going to look like tonight and whether Sellers is maybe they'll just say Sellers is probable. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll say he's doubtful. I mean, I have no idea. But, the way he did talk yesterday kind of made me feel like, he even mentioned Luke Doty is the backup quarterback and he would play if Sellers isn't good to go. I mean, that's something that Gamecock fans don't seem to be too over the moon about.
It's one of those things that I think a lot of us are just kind of going to assume that Doty is going to play this weekend until proven otherwise. And you obviously hope when that availability report comes out tonight, it's not just a straight-up out situation with Lenore Sellers, that he can be questionable or probable or something along those lines, where the opportunity to play is still open for this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, I do wonder, though. I mean, so if he's, I don't know. I mean, what do you think he'll be, listed as on the report tonight?
I would assume somewhere between probable or probably questionable, right?
Yeah.
Considering the fact that it sounds like he didn't practice yesterday. Again, if he doesn't practice today, based on their policy, then he's not going to play anyway. And again, we're not out there to see the practice. We don't know. I'd be willing to bet questionable. And your hope is that moves to probable as the week goes along, and then he's good to go by Saturday. But if nothing else, I wouldn't expect them just to rule him out straight up. But I would say probably questionable tonight.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What does the concussion protocol timeline look like? Because it's typically it's got to be more than a few days, right?
Well, and that's the thing, is every concussion is different, right? Concussions are tricky, so it's hard to look specifically at, hey, here's another player that got concussion. He was back in X amount of days, because no two concussions are created equal. Have you ever had a concussion yourself?
I have not.
I had a very mild one back in high school that, for being a mild concussion, it sure didn't feel like it. I bounced my head off a mat in wrestling practice one day when we would do wrestle-offs where you kind of determine who the varsity guy is going to be for that upcoming weekend. And we were doing that at practice one day, And in the process of doing a move, my opponent sat out, and I went from basically sitting straight up to face down on the mat, made a big loud thud. Everybody went, ooh, didn't feel good. And I got up, and I had, you know what the black box is, the little ring around your area of vision?
Yeah.
I had that, and I couldn't, close my hands. I felt very weird. And I finished the match we were doing or whatever, and I remember, our gym where we practiced was upstairs. We had several flights of stairs to go down to our locker room below. And I was feeling off after that match because I hit my head. And I was like, hey, I just need to go downstairs, get some water, and see if I feel better. And I remember I couldn't make my brain tell myself to walk down the stairs. I had to cling to the railing and guide myself down 3 flights of steps just to go get some water, and had to crawl back up because I was cognitively all screwed up from bouncing my head off the mat. That was just a mild concussion. I went to the hospital that night. They diagnosed me as a mild concussion. I sat out practice for 1 day, which that was back in 2012. The policies have updated where I probably would have been out for a couple weeks or something like that. But that was just a mild concussion, right? We don't know the severity of Lenore Sellers' concussion in this instance. And again, he basically got popped in the jaw by the linebacker from Vanderbilt the other day that hit him, as a free rusher when Trevon Ball missed his assignment on that play. So it could be a lot more severe than it even appeared on, television. And again, no 2 concussions are created equal. So it's really hard to look at this and say, okay, well, so-and-so got a concussion. He was back 2 days later, because you just don't really know.
That's the thing. And, I'm looking it up here, and, I feel like the protocol, it's got to take some time, right? First off, you got to probably rest a little bit. And then you got to have no symptoms before even practicing out there.
Yep.
And it's Wednesday now, so we don't know exactly if he's practiced or not yesterday or even Monday or whatever. But if he hasn't, it's not looking well for this weekend. But I also wonder, Shane did mention if you don't practice Tuesday, Wednesday here, you're not going to play on Saturday. And I get that makes sense, because by Thursday, you're probably already got everything installed for the week. You probably know what your game plan is. And then Friday, it's walkthrough. And then Saturday, Friday, you're probably going to Missouri, actually.
Yep.
So, by that point, everything's already set in stone for the weekend. But would they make an exception for Lenore? This is Lenore Sellers we're talking about.
Now, when going back to the clip we played from Beamer a moment ago, he said it doesn't matter who you are, the policy is still the same. But you're right. This is Lenore Sellers, the best player on your entire team, obviously the best player on your offense, more specifically. But here's the thing: if you don't practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, how ready for the game are you?
That's the thing.
It is a Sellers that is banged up enough to where he couldn't practice in the middle of the week. Is he going to be good enough to do what he needs to do on Saturday if you allowed him to play? I don't know if he is.
My guess is, though, and Shane mentioned this on Sunday, that he didn't directly answer. He didn't say whether Sellers did practice or didn't practice on Sunday. He did say that he was there at practice, though. So take that for what you will.
You can be there sitting on the sidelines.
Yes. But my thing is with that, I bring that up because what if the last few days, if he hasn't been practicing, what if he's just been kind of at practice, not in uniform, but kind of still getting the whole game plan like everyone else is, just in case? Because I feel like if there's any chance that he's ready to go for Saturday, you'd be crazy not to play him.
Yeah, if he gives you the best option at quarterback, right? There's no denying that. And, again, God bless Luke Doty. He is going to go out there and give it his best effort if he is, called into action once again. But you feel way better about your prospects to go into Missouri, which is a tough place to play anyway, and win with Lenore Sellers compared to Luke Doty or Aaron Noland or Cutter Woods or Jimmy Francis or whoever, Brandon Cunningham, if we want to keep going down the list. Sellers gives you the best option, out of all those guys. And if he is available to go this weekend, you certainly want that to be the case.
Yes, most definitely. You really do.
So we'll see what happens. Again, availability report coming out tonight just after 8 o'clock, and we'll react to whatever that says coming up tomorrow for sure. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 1. Speaking of quarterbacks, is Diego Pavia in his final year of eligibility? May not be the case. We'll discuss that as we wrap up the hour. Up next, it is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Wednesday on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. We've talked a lot about what Shane Beamer had to say yesterday in his weekly presser, talking to the media, and one of the main talking points was addressing the quote-unquote conspiracies around LaNorris Sellers and his lack of running so far this year. And real quick, before we get to the Diego Pavia thing, Ray wants to weigh in on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines about Beamer addressing the conspiracy. Ray, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Tyler. Hey, Jack. Well, I guess I'm one of these conspiracy theories, or conspirators, let's say conspirators, who's full of crap. Because I think there's definitely something wrong with the offense, and I think Jack asked a very inquisitive and very good question. And I think what I see what's happening with Sellers not running the ball, think about how many of those runs last year, and they all count to your total yardage of running, your rushing yards, were because he was in the pocket for a second and saw there was nothing and reversed out and, got a big play. I would be willing to bet 20% of the yards for rushing were accountable for that. I mean, think about the play against Clemson. There was nothing there in that pocket. He got out of there and he bailed. And I think there's this, their passing, their schematics, whatever you want to call it. It's like we want to keep him in that. We want to keep Sellers in that pocket until the last second. So I think it's just not working. But it doesn't. The old saying, even a blind man can see this offense isn't working. But I know there's a lot of coaches. They get really, bullied with the press and all that. And to me, it's just classless. Regardless if you're a pro coach, college coach, or whatever. I know some coaches, act that way. But regardless, if you're part of that media corps, you can't let the decorum of a coach affect the questions you're going to ask. And I don't normally listen to these pressers, but there were Jack and a few others who asked, legitimate questions. But there were so many there, and I'm thinking this is your 1 week to talk to a coach about what happened, and the best you can do is serve up softballs. I was really taken back by that, but that's about all I got to say. But I do think the Norse thing is more of let's keep him in the pocket to the last second, whereas last year if he saw there was nothing there, he bailed. But that's just my take, guys. Thanks.
Yep, actually, absolutely.
Good
Appreciate
stuff.
the call. 803-404-6100. Kind of goes back to what we said a little bit earlier where, again, the play calls and the concepts may be very similar to a year ago, but if you've really tried to make Sellers a better pocket passer, then, yeah, he's going to wait in that pocket a little bit more, may not cut and run as quickly as he did a year ago where he was able to make some of those magical plays, and that's where you kind of maybe see the difference in the offense this year. Again, that's just based on what we've seen through the first couple games, and maybe that changes this weekend if he plays. I don't know, but again, we're not wrong for seeing that something looks very different compared to a year ago, and the numbers back it up.
No, it does feel different in a lot of ways, and appreciate Ray for the kindness there with the talking about the question and whatnot. And look, it needs to be asked. Like, we're not supposed to be friends with these guys. Like, again, no, we're not buddy with Shane Beamer. Like, is he nice to us? Yeah, sure. But, like, again, and we're nice back. But, again, at the end of the day, we have a job to do. That's to ask questions. And, I don't care what the other people have to ask. Like, whatever they want to ask, go for it. That's not up to me. But I'm there to ask important questions and try to get answers.
Well, if you thought you'd seen the last Diego Pavia this past weekend, you might be sorely mistaken because according to Pete Nakos of On3, his lawyer is pushing for a 7th year of eligibility. Diego Pavia denied this on Twitter yesterday, but we trust Pete Nakos' reporting that they're at least looking into this for 2026 for him to return once again to Vanderbilt.
This would be crazy if he came back. I mean, this came up yesterday before the press conference, and I'm like, what? Like, how? What? How is this going to happen? But apparently, again, it goes back to the whole JUCO situation where I think he played multiple years at the JUCO level. And, apparently his attorney did say in a courtroom today, and this is all according to Pete Nakos, that the attorney is planning to stack on a challenge to the redshirt rule, asking for an injunction so Pavia can play in 2026. That doesn't mean Diego Pavia has to take advantage of an extra year if it is there, but it's something that I think you might as well try. I mean,
yeah.
Why not? I mean, the NCAA hands out like an extra year of eligibility like it's nothing. So,
well, my thing is, look, Diego Pavia doesn't have high pro prospects, right? And according to this article, he's making around $2 million this year to play for Vanderbilt. his prospects to make that much money in a single year are not going to be very high once he's done with college football. I would milk that for everything that's worth. I'd look for an 8th year, a 9th year, a 10th year. If you can give me that eligibility and I can go and make $2 and $3 million every single year for the next 2 to 3 years, I'm absolutely going to do that if I'm Diego Pavia.
Like, why not? I mean, it'd be great for him to do it. I don't think Gamecock fans would like to see him again next season, or most people probably wouldn't. But for his future, and look, he's not going to the NFL, so you might as well go ahead and try to make as much money as you can.
So perhaps we've not seen the last of Diego Pavia. We will we'll see how that ends up working out for 2026. We'll get into our college football playoff eliminator, who is officially out of the running, in our opinion, to make the postseason. With that coming up next, start hour number 2. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Wednesday on the game. Tyler Head here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. I feel like every single morning when I'm on the interstate driving in to work, I see one of those Canty Foundation Specialist trucks, and I know they're on their way to help out somebody with their foundation issues. And I'm happy to remind you once again, you always need to be on the lookout for foundation issues around your own home. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation problems. And that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconvicts.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate those foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantyconvicts.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist. Welcome back in hour number 2. It is the Extra Point. Tyra and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Busy day tomorrow from 3 until 6. You can go hang out with post-game shows. They'll be live at the Old Mill Brew Pub at 711 East Main Street over in Lexington. Getting you set for another full football weekend. Then Carolina Calls tomorrow night at 7 o'clock with Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis, which you can listen to right here on the game. Following that, you got Thursday Night Football in what might be the bludgeoning of the year as the Dolphins get set to take on the Bills. The less said about how bad the Dolphins are. Well, we'll get to our NFL top 5, bottom 5 coming up a little bit later on the hour, but I have a feeling the Dolphins are going to find their way into our bottom 5, and the Bills will both be in our top 5. So tomorrow night could get pretty ugly.
It definitely could. I'm looking forward to it. Might be one of the easiest games of the year. And hopefully I say that, then they win. But, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's not been pretty for the team from South Beach so far this season. It's also not been pretty for a lot of teams around college football. As we've been through 3 weeks as of right now, and as we do each and every Wednesday, we're taking a look at our college football playoff eliminator. Teams that we can definitively right now say have zero shot of making the college football playoff. We're still in that kind of tricky window where most programs have not played a second conference game yet. So theoretically, you can always say, I know they've lost a conference game, but they could run the table, win the conference, and get in that way. That possibility does always exist. But there's a lot of teams that we have seen 3 weeks of play so far, and we can say, yeah, I don't see that team doing that.
So let's start with the SEC.
Yes.
I can't confidently. I know these teams are not going to make the college football playoff, but I can't, again, until I see that they lose 2 or 3 games, I won't eliminate them officially. But if I had to eliminate one team for sure, I'm going Florida. They have not looked good so far this season. I mean, DJ Lagway was an interception machine the other day.
5 picks, man. 5
against
picks.
LSU. And they get Miami this weekend. They go to South Beach, they go to Coral Gables, and then it's full steam ahead from there with another really tough game coming up after that, and another one after that, and another one after that. It feels like every game on the schedule is tough from this point on. Again, my prediction in a few weeks here, the hot take alarm. I got Billy Napier getting fired after, the Texas A&M game?
I think you had him starting 1-5 and then getting
Yes.
fired. So whatever the 6th game of the year is for Florida.
We're 3 losses away.
We're halfway there.
Yes, so the magic number is now 3, and it's going to go down after this weekend. Shoot, maybe it'll happen sooner. I don't know. But Florida doesn't look good right now, and I'll be stunned if they win this weekend.
By the way, let me check on this real quick. That game is in...
It's at Miami.
It's at Miami. Okay, I thought for a second it was at Florida because game day is going to be there,
Which
is
odd.
weird
Because they look at the matchups they had. They could have gone to Illinois, Indiana,
Yeah.
a top 20 matchup.
that could legitimately be fighting for a playoff spot. But yeah, I don't know. That's just and I guess it's good that it's at Miami because you want to talk about zero juice. If you were in Gainesville for this game, oh my goodness, that'd be atrocious. And yeah, the game day does that every single year where there's 1 week where they pick a game and you're like, really, that one? When you look at 3 or 4 other options of hey, that would have been a whole lot better. And I guess we're doing that early this year.
Big Noon Kickoff is going to Utah this weekend, and that makes sense. College Game Day does not want to probably be at the same spot as Big Noon, but they're not going to Indiana, Illinois. So why isn't Game Day there? They went to Bloomington last year.
They did.
It's a top 20 matchup. 2 pretty good teams in the Big Ten there. I just maybe they don't want to do the Big Ten 2 weeks in a row because we all know where they're going next week. So
yeah, I don't know, but that is definitely a weird option. And I think last week why we didn't put Florida on, despite the loss to USF, because again they hadn't played a conference game yet, and Billy Napier proved a lot of us wrong last year when we were really down on him, kind of flipping that switch and figuring things out against some really good teams like LSU in the back half of the season. But yeah, what I see of this Florida team, I don't see that happening. And yeah, I was really high on DJ Lagway. I was on the hype train for him this offseason because I thought he had all the tools and he had all the pieces around him to have a really great year, and it's just not happening.
no, it's not. Moving over to the Big Ten, easy one here. UCLA.
Oh
boy.
Oh man.
UCLA. I would also group in Northwestern, honestly. They're
Yeah.
they're 1-2 now. They lost to Oregon the other day. I mean, not much to say there. I mean, UCLA has been god awful. I mean, they've lost now to three teams, and it's been ugly for them so far this year.
And we had put them on last week, and I think we kind of all knew Deshaun Foster was probably on the hot seat. I don't know if we saw him getting fired 3 weeks into the season, but when you and I think they paid New Mexico like over $1 million, I want to say. When you pay a team to come in there and not just beat you, but beat you soundly, like it was not even remote, because I think 35-10 was the final score. It's just kind of like, and again, nothing that you saw from UCLA this year made you think they were going to be great anyway. But when that happens, much like Brent Pry getting run out of his own building by Old Dominion in the first half, it's like, dude, we can't even give you the option to finish out the season because this is so bad. You got to get out of here.
It's bad. And funnily enough, I mentioned Northwestern. UCLA is going to Northwestern this weekend, so one of those teams will beat up on each other. And Northwestern has a 74% chance to win this game, according to the ESPN matchup predictor.
How many people are going to attend that game, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, they actually draw relatively decent crowds out there at. What do they call it out there?
It's not Ryan Field, because that's what's being worked on. It's their
Northwestern Medicine Field at Martin Stadium.
Okay, it's like because it was either a practice facility or a soccer field.
It's right next to what I think is actually their indoor facility.
Yes, and it's next to the lake, which I think is
it's
really cool.
Gorgeous.
Like the visuals are crazy out there. But yeah, it's a temporary home for them, but I'm afraid when Ryan Field, and again, let's go back to was it last year or 2 years ago now when the whole Pat Fitzgerald thing unfolded?
About 2 years ago, I think.
The stuff going on within the program, like they've and they were already in a tough spot anyway, but they've been spiraling since. Like when Ryan Field opens up properly, I guess next year, I don't know how many people are filling that thing anyway.
No, I don't know, honestly. But the renderings look really nice.
They do.
For that stadium.
As most stadium renderings tend to do.
But I do dig the look on the water there. But
yeah, let's jump over to the ACC now. We've already gotten Stanford and Virginia Tech before Brent Pry was even fired on our list here. Would you be bold enough to put Clemson on this list?
No.
You're not counting them out yet?
Don't count them out yet. They've looked terrible through 3 weeks, but that's the one mistake a lot of people will make is counting that team out. I saw ESPN talking earlier about how Clemson has a 4% chance to make the college football playoff. That's more than enough. Like, don't give into it, because they will find a way to probably prove everyone wrong. They're still Clemson. It's still Dabo Swinney. You know, I don't know. I mean, they got some tricky games coming up with Florida State next month and some other ACC games. I know they still got to play SMU, but it's it's too early to count Clemson out.
Are we ready to put Boston College on the list? They are 1-2 to start the season. They lost their first conference game against Stanford. Yes, Stanford is in the ACC, in case you've forgotten. 30-20. I don't see the upside for this team whatsoever. And again, there's always the theory of they could run the table and win the conference and all that kind of stuff. Ain't happening.
No. Honestly, can we even rule Stanford out yet? Because they're third in the ACC standings right now.
I guess technically not, because they are 1-0. We had already put them on this list, and I've watched Stanford play Hawaii in week number 1, and that was so god awful that I felt confident enough then to say, yeah, this team ain't doing much this year.
No. You know who might be a sleeper to win the ACC this year? The Cal Golden Bears. They have looked sharp to open the season.
They have, by the way, they take on Boston College not this weekend, but next weekend.
Oh, so
BC's got a bye. But, I'm still getting used to saying that those two California schools are in the ACC.
Oh, man.
We go over to the Big 12 now. A lot of teams either undefeated or with only one loss. Last week, we put K-State on there and Oklahoma State after just getting absolutely skull-drugged by Oregon in their Week 2 matchup. Colorado, they're not looking great right now. They're 1-2 to start the season. Losses Georgia Tech and Houston this past weekend. Again, it's only one conference loss. Nothing's impossible. Deion squad seems to have taken a step back this year, though.
Yeah, it has not been a pretty start to the year. Their quarterback situation has been an absolute mess so far this year. Like, they're playing their third string guy against Houston, and you have so many good players, I guess, at the quarterback position, but I don't know if they're super high on the guys that they have coming in. So, not sure, but definitely K-State, 1-3. They're awful. Colorado, I would put right there with them, and I think that's. I mean, Oklahoma State's only 1-1, but again, they have that 69-3 loss to Oregon. Again, I said it last time out. We talked about this. It doesn't matter what Oklahoma State, unless they win the Big 12. It doesn't matter what they do the rest of the year. You cannot, in good conscience, put them in with that one loss they have. It's awful.
So here comes the biggest question of the week, because Notre Dame has only played 2 games so far this season. They had a bye in week number 2, funny enough, but they lose at the last second to Miami in week number 1. Miami's the number 4 team in the country. They really probably could have won on Saturday against Texas A&M if Tyler Buckner hadn't completely botched the hole on that extra point. Regardless, they are 0-2 right now, but both of their losses are to quality teams. They would have to go undefeated the rest of the way. They cannot lose another game. They would have to be 10-2 to close out the season for any kind of shot at making the playoff as an at-large, because, again, they don't have a conference and can't win their way through. They're still 24th in the AP poll because of the quality of their losses. Like, is Notre Dame still in the running here?
I don't think so. I think they're done. I mean, I say done, and then they go 10-2. If they were to go 10-2, I think the committee would probably put them in. But here's the thing: you're looking at this from a logical standpoint. Their best game left on the schedule is Southern Cal at home.
As of right now.
As of right now. As the number 25 team in the country. No other ranked opponents on the schedule. And honestly, man, I do think they're going to have another loss coming at some point. I'll say it right now. Here we go. Hot take time. I'm going to say they go to Arkansas in 2 weeks. And they lose.
That's a good Arkansas team.
Taylor Green, baby. Taylor Green. Noon game, trap game in Fayetteville. I think that place is going to be rocking. I think Notre Dame loses that one. So they're going to be done either way in 2 weeks, in my opinion.
So you want to go ahead and rule them out?
I would rule them out regardless of what happens the rest of the season. They're losing another game at some point, I think.
I can't say they're done yet because, again, their schedule is pretty easy, all things considered. And, again,
but who have they beaten? They would have no quality wins.
That is the thing. They don't have any quality wins to fall back on. But we have not, in an expanded playoff at least, we've not seen the committee have to dabble with this kind of scenario, right? And if Notre Dame can lose to Northern Illinois last year, which was one of the worst losses of the entire year, and that kind of completely gets glossed over and what they ended up, were they the number 5 or 6 seed last year? They were still a pretty high seed, all things considered. I don't rule anything out when it comes to Notre Dame because that is a valuable brand that the committee knows if they get them in the playoff, they're going to get a lot of attention on that. I'm not ready to call them dead just yet.
But again, it's like unless the teams they're playing are just end up being really, really good and they run the table and they win 10 games, I mean, I can't put them in. They lost the 2 bad. And also, what if Miami and Texas A&M go on to stink the rest of the year? Like, yes, it's good losses right now, but at the end of the day, what if those teams are unranked by the end of the year? That makes those losses look a lot worse.
That's why I'm glad I'm not on the college football playoff committee to have to make those decisions. Speaking of good teams, we'll get into our NFL top 5, bottom 5 coming up next. Who impressed us in week number 2 and who just looks downright disappointing? We'll get into all that as the hour rolls along. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Wednesday on the Game.
This just in, AAA Heating and Air continues to dominate the Midlands with the best HVAC replacement options around. With guaranteed financing, 12 months, no payments or interest, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty, they are setting the standard for new system installations. But did you know they also have great deals on repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're short on cash, AAA Heating and Air can still help you out. They offer up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check required on repairs. All you need is a valid bank account. That's it. So don't delay. Call AAA Heating and Air today. The number to call them is 803-677-1500. Again, that is 803-677-1500. Whether it's a replacement or repair, they've got the deal you need.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Belcher along with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. We've not really gotten a chance to talk a lot of NFL this week because so many headlines going on around the college football world, but 2 weeks are officially in the books for the National Football League. As we do each and every Wednesday, we get into our NFL top 5, bottom 5. We'll start off with the top 5 here. Who'd you have as number 1 last week?
I had the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay. Has your number 1 changed?
Nope. My top 5 has only slightly changed, but it's still the same 5 teams. So the Philadelphia Eagles are still number 1 for me. Look, they're 2-0. They went to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. I mean, that is I don't care if the Chiefs are off to an 0-2 start this year. That's still the Chiefs, and you still got to beat Mahomes and Kelsey and all these guys in that defense. Steve Spagnuolo, but they've did a good job. Came out of there with the win.
Eagles are in my top 5. They are not at number 1. My number 1 did stay the same. I had the Green Bay Packers coming off their Week 1 win against the Lions, and I put them in there once again at number 1 because they straight up dominated the Washington Commanders last Thursday. I know it was almost a week ago now, but it was last Thursday, and I had billed that game to be like maybe one of the most fun Thursday night games we were going to get. It was not because of how good the Packers defense was holding Jaden Daniels in check, and I know he ended up getting injured in the process of that game as well, but it was well in hand before that happened. Like, this looks like a Green Bay team. I know we said this about that before about, the Aaron Rodgers years after they'd already won the Super Bowl, but this looks like a Super Bowl type of team that maybe gets back there for the first time in 15 years.
I think it's possible. I really do. They are in my top 5, but at number 2, I do have the Buffalo Bills. They looked very sharp against the Jets this weekend. I mean, that game wasn't even close for most of the way until the Jets scored in the late going to make it 30-10, which was the final. But defense looked a lot sharper in this one, really kept that offense in check. And, I mean, I know Justin Fields went down with an injury, I believe, but, look, still holding that offense in check. I mean, that is an impressive effort. And Josh Allen wasn't even healthy for a little bit of that game with, I think he had like some sort of like nose or head injury. Like I saw like the towel on his face for a little bit there.
Yeah, he ran the ball and one of the defenders got a hand basically in his face mask.
That's
and
right.
Popped his nose and it was bleeding. I don't think it's broken. I just think it just got busted. I did see he might be wearing a visor tomorrow to protect
see that. Yeah, like a clear visor, I think, is what it would be. So look, I'm glad he's okay. Number 1, because look, the Bills need him out there. But Trubisky looked all right with when he was out there for a little bit. But yeah, I got the Bills at number 2.
I have the Eagles at number 2. As you mentioned a moment ago, they went into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. And, as we learned at the end of last year with the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are maybe not what they were the past couple of years, and the Eagles took it into the woodshed in that Super Bowl, back in February. And this game was obviously a lot closer, but still, to be able to go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs, I think is worth a lot. Obviously, the defense is really good. The offense continues to do what they do. The tush push is still very much alive and well. And man, I'm excited about the prospect of an Eagles-Packers NFC Championship game.
For me, I do have the Green Bay Packers at number 3, and I think you're right, man. I think we need to see this type of NFC Championship game. The Packers look very good so far. And again, they beat the Commanders in a game that wasn't really as interesting as we maybe thought it would for a Thursday night game. But the Packers have done what they've needed to do, and they got a good chance to go 3-0 this weekend with the Browns this weekend. And I mean, look, they're looking legit so far, and again, that Micah Parsons trade really has elevated them in a lot of ways.
My number 3 is the Los Angeles Chargers, who once again dispatched of a divisional rival. They beat the Chiefs in week number 1 on that Friday night, and then Monday night, I know it was a late game, maybe didn't stay up for it, but they pretty handily took care of the Las Vegas Raiders 20-9 in that one. Justin Herbert, who is on my fantasy team, so I'm keeping an extra close eye on him, playing pretty lights out so far this year, which is good to see. Again, I think the Harbaugh factor of him being legitimately one of the best football minds we have in football today has this team in position to take that next step and maybe make a deep playoff run this year.
Yeah, that's going to be my number 4 is the Los Angeles Chargers. Just like you said there, looking sharp to open the year. I'm high on this team. Justin Herbert's my fantasy quarterback. He's looked solid so far this year. And yeah, I mean, I'm impressed. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is doing a very good job with this team, and it's very early to say whether or not, who the favorite in the AFC West is right now, but I think it's honestly the Chargers. Like, until we see the Chiefs start playing more of that football, I think the Chiefs are broken after that Super Bowl last year. I mean, that was a blowout loss that they took, and they're off to an 0-2 start this year. Chargers are up 2 games in that division. That's a really good way to start the year for them.
Number 4.
That's what I just said, number 4.
Oh, sorry, that was your number 4.
Yes.
Okay. I do have the Bills at my number 4, as you mentioned a moment ago. Made pretty easy work of the Jets on Sunday, and I give them a lot of credit because the week prior, that was a highly emotional game against the Ravens, Sunday Night Football. You had the comeback. You had the crazy victory there at the last second, and in football, you always look ahead to that next week, especially if you're playing a less than stellar team, saying, okay, what's the letdown going to be? Are you going to end up in a tight game with a team you have no business playing a tight game against? But outside of, Josh Allen kind of getting busted in the face there, they went in there, no problems, took care of the Jets, and now have maybe even an easier task ahead of them tomorrow night, taking on a very hapless Dolphins team.
Yeah, I'm glad you have the Bills in your top 5 there, buddy. But
Were you worried I was going to leave them out?
No. Never in doubt. I'm surprised they're at 4, though. I am surprised by that.
And look, when we're talking about the top 5 this early in the season, it's like splitting hairs, man.
It is true, man.
It's very difficult.
It is true. The answers will start to come as the season gets going. Number 5 for me. I've kept them in my top 5, even though I'm a little bit, I don't know. We'll see. The Baltimore Ravens.
All right.
Much better showing against the Browns. And, of course, what else would you expect? It's at home opener against the Browns. Browns aren't going to be very good this year. The Ravens looked much more competent out there, especially defensively. Holding the Browns to 17 points. Joe Flacco was all right in his return to Baltimore. And then you have Lamar going out there throwing 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 225 yards. Derrick Henry, surprisingly, the Ravens' rushing attack did nothing in this game. I mean, 45 yards on the ground, just over 2 yards per carry. But you won this game on the backs of what Lamar was able to do through the air. I mean, really big day for some of these receivers that they have there. We know this is a good offense. We know it can be a good defense. They need to continue to play like this moving forward.
My number 5 spot on the top 5 is always going to be very flexible, right? Do I believe this is the 5th best team in the NFL? No. But I got to give them credit for what they've done through the first 2 weeks. I got to go Indianapolis Colts. They have not punted yet this season. Daniel Jones,
They look good.
Danny Dimes looks rejuvenated. Like we thought this guy was dead in the water when he left New York and went into this quarterback competition with Anthony Richardson in the offseason. And it's only 2 games, and yes, they played the Dolphins in week number 1, but give credit where it's due, man. The Colts have done what they needed to do through the first couple weeks. They got the Titans this weekend. That shouldn't be too hard of a challenge. They got some tougher games coming up. Rams, Chargers, Steelers, Chiefs later on in the season. But man, they look good right now, and I want to shine some kind of light on them while I have the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not a Colts believer yet, but I can't deny it. They're off to a really good start this season, and I'll be interested to see if they can keep this up. I expect them to go 3-0 after this week, but football is more fun when Daniel Jones is out there doing his thing and playing well, and he certainly has so far.
We'll get into our NFL bottom 5 on the other side. Who is at the very basement of the league after 2 weeks? We'll hit that coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. We'll get into our bottom five here in a second. But first, it's time for Who Sprung a Leak, brought to you by our friends over at American Leak Detection. I wouldn't say this is a full-on leak sprung, and I don't have either one of these teams in my bottom five, just for reference here. But I don't know if you paid attention to what happened with the Jaguars and the Bengals on Sunday, but a little bit of a moment between Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen, the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, when Cohen was screaming at Trevor Lawrence to hit his receiver in the chest while they were trying to attempt to go down and win the game at the very end. And Trevor Lawrence just kind of waved him off, gave him the whatever hand as the drive continued. Something to put in the back of your mind as a little bit of a public moment there between a new coach and quarterback combination.
Yeah, and did you also see, I don't know how often I've seen teams do this, but the Jaguars, I guess on social media, posted because they lost that game, right?
Yep.
And they posted Liam Cohen's post-game speech to the guys in the locker room and stuff. And, I mean, obviously, the Jags aren't off to the best start this year, 1-1 now with a win over the Panthers. But, look, that team's got so many good players on it. It's just, I mean, a lot of potential, especially in the AFC South. But I don't know. I still wonder if Trevor Lawrence is the right quarterback there.
Well, if Brian Thomas Jr. could catch the ball when they throw it his way, that'd probably help out a little bit too. He had some struggles over the weekend.
Yeah, that would help a bit.
Yeah. So we get into our NFL bottom five now. Again, none of those teams are in my bottom five, but I'll start off with my number 28. And we mentioned a moment ago losing to your number 5 team, the Ravens, that being the Cleveland Browns, who are just perennially bottom 5 caliber type of team in the NFL. Again, the entire offseason has revolved around this drama with the quarterback room and Shedeur Sanders and all that kind of stuff. When I see the Browns, what little I've seen of them so far this year, they just look like same old Browns, giving up a lot of points, having gaffes, getting a punt blocked, turning the ball over. They scored a touchdown on their very last drive that made that score look better than it was because the Ravens were on their way to beating them 41-10, and it ended up being 41-17. But I mean, just to sum it up, the Browns look like the Browns. I don't know what else to say.
They've looked bad. I'm going with the Carolina Panthers as the number 28 team on my list. They did not look good at the start against the Cardinals the other day, but they did fight back, did cut the deficit down to 5, ended up losing 27-22. Saw some things out of Bryce Young in that game, 3 touchdowns, but at the same time, still, they're 0-2 on the year. They're back at home this weekend to play their home opener against the Falcons. We'll see what happens. I mean, the Falcons just went on the road and beat the Vikings, but on Sunday Night Football. But I don't know what I'm thinking with this Panthers team. Again, they're like my sleeper to make the playoffs this year, but I don't know about right now.
I am not far behind you there because I have the Panthers as my number 29 team, and we talked about this last week. It really looks like Bryce Young has kind of reverted back to him last year prior to getting benched, where he did finish the season pretty strong, and it's just kind of been a rough go. And again, they did mount a comeback on Sunday to make that game closer than it had been to start out, but they just look like they have a long way to go. And as much as we love him, our guy XL, man, he's not off to a good start this season. His statistics this year are pretty bad. 4 receptions in 2 games. He's got a lot more targets than that. Total of 8 yards, including 1. He's been targeted 15 times. He's only brought in 4 receptions. He's got 8 yards on the season, including -2 on Sunday in that loss to Arizona. It's not looking like a great year 2 for XL.
It's not. We actually flip-flopped on these 28 and 29. I got the Cleveland Browns at 29. Again, like you said, man, you said what needed to be said. They have not looked very good at all through 2 weeks. At what point do we maybe see a change? Not that there needs to be a change of quarterback right now, but at what point do we see the Browns start to look ahead to their future a little bit? Maybe put Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders in there, one of those guys. I mean, Deshaun Watson's not coming back anytime soon. So,
well, even if he did, he's not the Deshaun Watson he once was.
No, he's certainly not. So I got the Browns at 29.
My number 30, it's going to go with Tennessee Titans. And look, I don't set my bar of expectation very high for this team because they're in the process of trying to rebuild themselves. Regardless, if you're a Titans fan, it's going to be a very slow painful rebuild as once again they just got completely decimated by a better team on Sunday in the Los Angeles Rams, who, like their Week 1 game against the Broncos, got outgained by about 200 yards. Like, offense isn't really clicking in. Again, it's Cam Ward. He's a rookie quarterback. I'm not putting the expectations super high, but they're not playing great football to start things off here.
No, they have not, and we're right on the same page about that. Yeah, number 30 for me is also the Titans. Again, we saw that one play from Cam Ward the other day, that really crazy touchdown pass against the Rams. But other than that, haven't been super impressed with this team. Knew they were not going to be very good coming into the year, hence why they had the number 1 pick last year. But it's not a good start for the Titans, and I honestly don't see them improving much at all. But I do want to see Cam Ward continue to do good things, though.
My number 31 going to be the Chicago Bears, off to an 0-2 start to start the season. They're playing the Lions, who, of course, were the team that Ben Johnson had been the OC for the past couple seasons. Dan Campbell was trying to prove a point this past weekend, and I think he made that very obvious by quite literally running up the score on them in the second half to say, hey, we don't need you. We can be successful just fine on our own. And I don't know what that relationship between Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell is, but they didn't exactly look too buddy-buddy in the postgame, handshake. And if you believe the rumors, there might be a little bit of a rift between those two.
But that's the thing, though. And by the way, the Bears are my number 31 as well, so I'll kind of just segue into that. Yeah, I mean, look, I heard what Ben Johnson had to say in the postgame and stuff, and he's right about one thing. This is kind of who Dan Campbell is. He's not, because he was straight up asked, are you surprised at all that the Lions ran up the score there at the end and all that? And he's like, no. I mean, this is what Dan Campbell does. They go for on fourth down. They don't kick field goals. They don't punt. They go for it, and they play hard the entire game. So it's not surprising at all to see the Lions go out there and do this, and it does show that maybe they don't need him. But also for the Bears, I don't know about Caleb Williams, man. I really don't know. The blocking's been terrible with 4 sacks, but I mean, he hasn't been very good on his own either. So the Bears are my number 31.
Well, and that loss to the Vikings looks even worse in comparison after the Vikings looked awful against the Falcons on Sunday, especially offensively, because J.J. McCarthy just looks like he's not ready to be an NFL quarterback yet. So I think that further drags down the Bears, and it's, once again, it's going to be a long season if you're a Chicago fan, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Bears fans, man. It's been a while since they've been really good. Again, 2018, the Cody Parkey missed field goal will probably haunt those fans forever, which was a really good year for them with Mitch Trubisky. But, man, I mean, it's just, when is the Bears moment going to come? I just don't think it's going to be this year.
Well, speaking of moments not coming, the Dolphins aren't going to have any moments anytime soon, as I think we're going to agree they're both number 32, right?
Yes. The Dolphins have been terrible this season. 0-2 to start the year. You got Mike McDaniel with these silly little post-game clips of talking about, we need to win the game, but we're losing the game. Like, just the stupidity of some of these comments he's made are just like, yeah, this is a guy that knows he's kind of he's on the hot seat, and it's getting close to being over for him.
Well, when you have a players-only meeting after the first game of the season, you're cooked, in my opinion. Like, there's no coming back from that, because when the players are meeting with themselves, there's clearly a disconnect or a distrust between the players and the coaching staff. When that's happening 1 week into the season, it's over with. And again, what the Bills do to them tomorrow might be illegal in some states.
It might be. Now, let's give them credit. Tua did look good the other day. I mean, 26-32, 315 yards. Did throw a pick, was sacked 5 times, but did have 2 touchdowns. I mean, Tyreek Hill performed much better. Devon Achane was solid overall, but again, this team still has a lot of problems, and they lost to the Patriots. They lost the week before to the Colts pretty badly. I mean, this is a team that, yeah, you're right about tomorrow. I mean, I'm not sure what the score is going to be. I think it'll be a little bit closer than we might think, but again, it's in Buffalo. We know how the Dolphins are away from South Beach, so we'll see what the score is tomorrow.
There's your NFL top 5, bottom 5 for week number 2 in the National Football League. Talk some racing coming up next, as we do each and every Wednesday with Jen Jensen of the Early Game, as we wrap up hour number 2 of the Extra Point, along with you here on your Wednesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Points Hour ahead, wrapping up hour number 2 with you here on your Wednesday on the Game. And as we do each and every Wednesday, time to talk some racing with Jen Jensen from the early game, as we are now down to just 7 more races to go in the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. First round of eliminations happened this past weekend at the Bristol Motor Speedway. I had to go back and watch this race on Sunday night because we were obviously at the Carolina game while this race was happening. And my goodness, the tires created yet another story for Bristol for the second year in a row.
Man, no kidding. Just like spring of last year, a lot of drama with the tires, people pretty much running out, and all the marbles and everything. I don't know. Do we want this much tire wear, or do we want just a little bit less?
I don't think they found the happy medium yet. I think the spring last year was a little too much in the extreme direction. I think the way the race started on Saturday, because, again, they practiced on Friday and qualified, and, there was no tire wear at all. And I had listened to Denny Hamlin earlier last week say, man, these tires are going to fall apart, and they were tearing up this machine and all that kind of stuff, and I got excited. And when I saw no tire wear in practice, I'm like, well, here we go again, another just dud of a race at Bristol. But I was very wrong, and happily so. And again, I think we both can appreciate what the tire wear did for this race, but I do think there needs to be kind of a balance where maybe you dial it back to an 8, because I think we're at a 10 right now.
I think so. And again, you don't want that to be the only thing that really you're dealing with. I mean, it's still important to be able to get track position and pit strategy and all of that, and have that be part of your race, not just constantly, running 20 laps or something. It's like, oh my gosh, so we're going to start seeing the cords of the tires. There's got to be, like you said, a happy medium.
Regardless, Christopher Bell ends up surviving and picking up the victory as JGR has a clean sweep of the first round of the playoffs with Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin, now Christopher Bell picking up the victory. And Bell is somebody that started off the season really hot, had 3 wins early on right there out of the gate in a row, and has had an up-and-down season since then, but gets himself back to victory lane, and he's somebody that is very capable of winning at just about every single track, and I'm interested to see what this does to propel him into the second round.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and the tracks coming up are especially good for him, and I think that Joe Gibbs is really proving that they have something to show. I think the Toyotas in general have done pretty well as far as the first part of the playoffs, but Hamlin's going to be one to watch because he sure can't escape any kind of mess ups. They're losing a tire in the race. He has some problems, and with that penalty, he may lose a couple crew members. So it will be interesting to see if how far he's going to go if he can't get some things taken care of.
So this was the first round of eliminations where the field gets cut down from 16 to 12 as we head into the next 3 races starting this weekend in New Hampshire. But coming away from Saturday, you had Alex Bowman, Austin Dillon, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Josh Berry all get eliminated. I mean, I wouldn't say any of these are a surprise. Again, Josh Berry's just had a disaster of a first round that continued on Saturday where all that tire rubber ended up causing a fire inside his car. SVG, as we said, just needed to be okay, and he hasn't been able to do that. He's had a couple accidents so far. Austin Dillon getting caught up in some stuff after having the win at Richmond a few weeks back, and then Alex Bowman just not being able to do enough himself to get himself over that line either.
No, and like you said, there were no surprises there for sure. And now that we're down to the 12, it's going to be interesting because right now it's a pretty tight points race. So that's, I think, what makes it even more exciting. We kind of could see what was going to happen before, like going into this first elimination, but now it's a little more dicey, and I think that's going to make this even more fun.
Yeah, it gets interesting because when you look at how the points reset, where everybody again is seeded based off of their playoff points, it's only, 25 points to the cut line. So Denny Hamlin goes into this round with the most playoff points with 34. Bubba Wallace is on the cut line right now at 8 with 9. So, again, you're talking about one bad race, even for guys like Hamlin, like Kyle Larson, like William Byron that have had really good regular seasons and accrued a fair amount of playoff points. I wouldn't say any of them are sitting comfortably right now going into the second round.
No, I totally agree. I mean, and when you look at the people in the, you have Hamlin, Larson, Byron, and Bell, but in those top 4, and like you said, the numbers just don't bode out for anybody to just be relaxed, and it's another interesting trio of races coming up. So I think that everybody's got to be on their best behavior and really has to have a plan and has to execute, because you cannot keep having mistakes in pits. You've got to call the right race, or somebody surprisingly is going to be out by the next round.
This is probably I don't want to say the tamer round, but considering that the round of 8 has Talladega in it, this is the last round where I feel like you're kind of in control of your destiny more than anything else, with Loudon, Kansas, and then the Roval, which does have the opportunity to be chaotic as the next elimination race. By the way, it's the first time Loudon's been in the playoffs in, close to a decade now, which it's Christopher Bell's playground, so he's going to be a very popular candidate in your picks contest for tomorrow, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, he absolutely will be. And, yeah, really, like you said, it is tame. Thinking ahead more to the Roval, as far as that could be a little bit more of an element. You just automatically assume you have an SVG who may end up winning, and but you never know. But the likelihood of somebody in the playoffs, do they have a chance to win, or does SVG kind of take that out, and then we continue to have issues or keep the points race tight? Well,
that's the thing, is if you go through the first 2 races and you're in a situation where you have to win the Roval to get through to the round of 8, because SVG's in the field, that's almost like a guarantee that outside of him crashing, he's probably going to win the race. So you can't count on yourself going out there and winning that race.
Yeah, and that's what I think makes it a little more interesting, and why the numbers are just going to be really important right now for them, or for all of the teams in the playoffs.
It was a fun first round. Second round shaping up to be pretty exciting as well. And talk about what happens at Loudon and start looking ahead to Kansas next week.
Sounds like a plan. I appreciate it, Tyler.
Absolutely. Appreciate it as always, Jen, from the early game there as we wrap up hour number 2 of the Extra Point. Coming up next is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. We'll get back into what Coach Beamer had to say yesterday when discussing the offense during his press conference as your Wednesday rolls along here on the game. 11 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you here on the game. We'll start to turn our attention today to Missouri. Gabe Dierman of Power Mizzou going to join us a little bit later on in the hour as we start to peek ahead to the Tigers this upcoming weekend. But, guys, we got a lot to get into from what happened in yesterday's presser with Shane Beamer where, coming off of a loss, there's always a little bit of tension. Right, but he seemed perhaps more agitated than even in some past pressers coming off a loss, knowing the questions were going to be coming in reference to what's going on with the offense, and certainly we'll get to play the cut here in a second. We certainly got some of those questions, and he certainly answered them, knowing the conversations around his offense that have been happening for the past couple weeks.
Yeah, he did, and. In some ways, I think the questions were, for the most part, what we would have anticipated going into this. It was just a matter of how was he going to answer those things. And, here's the thing. I know a lot of people want him to say things differently and maybe throw his staff under the bus or call people out publicly. And I just don't think that's going to be his MO. And I'll say this, too. I don't necessarily think that just because he backs everything in a press conference, that doesn't mean that, there aren't going to be any changes behind the scenes. And I don't mean that in a sense of they're about to fire somebody. I mean just more in a sense of making adjustments and kind of telling people who work under him, hey, we need to change this, that, and the other. And I think we've seen that in the past. And I do think one thing about these Beamer seasons is that whenever you try to bury these teams, they've found a way to keep pulling in the right direction. And a lot of people at the end of the year always point to kind of Beamer's culture, the way he handles things, the way he treats people, what it's like inside that building. So if that aspect has been successful, and frankly, they have overachieved expectations every year so far except for one, I frankly just do not see him changing his approach in press conferences. Even though people want more, fans are going to want more. They're going to want you to go in and say, hey, the offense is terrible this pass. Whatever you want him to say, whatever would make you feel better, I just don't think we're ever going to – it's going to have to get pretty bad for us to ever get to that point, because I think Beamer believes in publicly we're going to keep forging forward, and I just don't think throwing a bunch of people under the bus publicly is in his playbook.
Yeah, it's not. I agree. And I think, a lot of times people want coaches to change who they are to get a better result, when to the extent that they have success, their mannerisms, their style, the way that they lead is what gets them there. And look, that is not me saying that this program can't or shouldn't improve and tweak some things and change some things to have more success. They should, right? But that doesn't always mean blowing up everything in the building. It doesn't mean changing the entire course of how you're running an operation. There's a very big, I think, very important distinctions. And, we're at a place right now already in Game 3, which, it happens in Game 3. Sometimes it happens after Game 1. It doesn't take it really just takes one loss, or it takes one game where you don't really look that good. We saw it last year. This year we saw it really after the SC State game. There was some conversation about the offense after the Virginia Tech game, maybe some warning signs. But Carolina won. They won a neutral site game. They won against a Power 4 opponent. There was some conversation about the offense. It really heated up last week. And then, of course, it really, really heated up after Carolina scored 7 points and lost at home to Vanderbilt by 24. So a lot of the questions that are being asked are very fair. I agree with you, Wes. He's not going to come in. Beamer has, I think, more of an edge than people give him credit for. And so what's being said and done and the way things operate behind the scenes, are going to be a little bit different even than a press conference setting. I think what people, and when I say people, like fans who are complaining sounds so negative, fans that are taking issue, I think you could say, about what Shane Beamer is saying in a press conference, want him, to go more strong, like you're saying, Wes. Some fans want him to go in there and just dog cuss his team or coaches or say everything's horrible, we're all terrible, or whatever it is in practice. I think another part of it is people don't like if you point out anything good, if you don't point out anything like we're close or here's the reasons that we've messed up or, just the way that he answers certain things. But again, I think it goes back to Beamer has a style. Every coach kind of has a style with how they're going to conduct themselves in a press conference. And I think sometimes we have to realize you got to just get to the heart of the matter and how do you actually go and fix this thing, And Shane Beamer is a wear his emotions on his sleeve type of guy. He's a heart on his sleeve type of guy. And so he, at times, is going to defend his program and some of the things that they've done. I think it does get lost at times that he has pointed out what's been deficient in some areas. Some people don't like that he's done that. They don't like the way in which he's done that. They think he should go stronger. I get it. I get all that. But we're at this point, like losing, when you lose a game or when you lose multiple games and the manner in which you lose them, we see this all the time. It starts bringing these things out about what's being said. Really, guys, the bottom line is they've got to put their head down, tune that out, and they've got to go actually get it fixed in the meeting room, on the practice field, so they can go get it fixed on the field. And all that other stuff, I think, will take care of itself.
So what did he say yesterday? And Jack's the one that posed the question, both in reference to Lenore Sellers and how he's been in the pocket, and also the question that's been asked, rightfully so, about his running abilities within this offense so far this year. And here was Beamer's response yesterday.
As far as the pocket, I think he's done well. I think the South Carolina State game, I think I mentioned it last week, where there's a third down that we throw to Mike Smith, and he does a great job stepping up in the pocket and making throws. The protection was good the other night. Again, we had 2 sacks, and one of those was because another position missed an assignment, and the other one was because we had a bad snap that Lenore's had to fall on it. Other than that, the protection was good and the pockets were good. I don't know what conspiracy theories are out there, but I've never said, and no one in this building has ever said, we need to run the quarterback less. Like, I hear all this crap about they're not running the quarterback enough. We're calling the same goddamn plays we called last year, guys, and we're not saying we need to run Lenoris less. I'm not getting on you, Jack. I know there's like this conspiracy theory going back to the bowl game that we see it don't run Lenoris as much. We're running Lenoris plenty, and some of those are reads where Lenoris can hand it or pull it and keep it. Some of those are RPOs where he can run it or throw it. And there's some of those are called design runs that he runs. And I would say every week we want to do what we need to do to win the football game. We ran him the other night. We ran him against Virginia Tech. We ran him against South Carolina and South Carolina State. And teams aren't dumb either. In our mind, last week, we wanted to get the ball out of the Vanderbilt quarterback's hands on some of those zone reads. And these teams we play, they have good coaches, and a lot of them are going to say, don't let 16 carry the ball, because we've seen what happens when he carries the ball too. So we're doing what we got to do to win football games each week, and if that means running Lenoris, then we're going to run Lenoris. Or Luke, or Air, or Cutter, or Jimmy Francis, or Brandon Cunningham, or whoever we got in there playing quarterback.
I think he made sure to list off all the quarterbacks, but we're mainly talking about Lenore Sellers here. So think about that answer for a second, marinate on it. What do the numbers say about how the offense is being utilized this year compared to last year in reference to how Lenore Sellers is running? We'll hit that coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Wednesday here on The Game.
All right, folks, football season rolling right along. Great time to upgrade that man cave by hitting up our friends at Integrated Media, 803-948-8327, or head on over to integratedmediainc.com. get more information about all their great services that they've offered. They've been to my house. They've been to Chris's. They can come to yours as well. And the great thing is there are all types of different things they can do to upgrade your experience right there in your home. For me, it was all about, hey, working from home. I work from home a lot. My wife works from home a lot. We wanted to make sure that we had a great connection, that we had hardwired Ethernet throughout the home. They handled that for us. Maybe you're into video games, want to make sure that there is, of course, no delay, no buffering. If you're streaming, watching things, they can make sure that's taken care of as well. And maybe you want to just go all in on this home theater system or man cave. Full TV, projection, surround sound, all the above. Dream up what your perfect setup is. Let them know about it, and then they're going to bring it to a reality at our friends at Integrated Media.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you on your Wednesday here on the game. Reminder, the Loyola Lisa Special Teams Contest rolls on. $200 up for grabs this week as the Gamecocks take on the Missouri Tigers. If you've not already, go online to 1075thegame.com and register for your chance to win the Loyola Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest if the Gamecocks do have a special teams score this weekend in Como. And getting back to what Coach Beamer said there in his press conference yesterday, where he says, hey, we're running the same plays from last year. The opportunities to run are there, but, you know, we as fans / media members watch the games and can see that Lenore Sellers is not running as much as he did last year, and it's not as big a part of the offense as it was a year ago. And Beamer mentioned specifically things like RPOs, things like read concepts that are a part of this offense, just like they were last year. So I went to SEC StatCat, which is Clark Brooks, great follow on Twitter if you don't already follow him, who does detail every specific type of play in every game for every SEC team.
This guy is a savant.
I don't know how he does it, but we're thankful for it. So I looked at the numbers and compared them to last year. So this season, South Carolina is running RPOs on 28% of offensive snaps compared to just 20% last year. They're running read variations 23% of the time compared to 32% from last year. Sellers and Elijah came up with these numbers per PFF, adjusted with Sellers only playing 2.5 games because he sat out the second half of Saturday. But he's averaging about 4 designed runs so far per game this year compared to 6 per game a season ago. So again, the numbers are different. Again, you're higher in one category with RPOs, lower in another category with read variations. And as Beamer alluded to, just because you have the opportunity to run on a play doesn't mean you're going to, because the way the defense can be set up to take Sellers out of that wants to allow him the opportunity to give the ball to Faison, to throw it to somebody else. So that part is baked in there as well. But when you do look at the numbers, it is pretty similar for the most part to what they're doing last year from a schematic standpoint in terms of opportunities that Sellers does have to run.
Yeah, and I think, so here's the thing. I think there are some semantics at play here, as there always seems to be when there's an argument between what fans think and what coaches think. I think there's a small sample size at play here as well. Fans are going to see what they're going to see, and, you did not run the ball with Sellers much at all against SC State.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's probably the proper thing to do. You do not, no matter how much people want to watch 16 run all over SC State, you don't want to let him take hits against an opponent where, I don't care how ugly it was in the first quarter offensively, that game was never in doubt. You just don't. Now, here's the thing. I remember South Carolina turning to the QB run against Old Dominion in game 1 of last year, saying, we've got to use this weapon or we're not going to win this game. So would we have seen more Sellers usage? Will we see more? How much does him coming off of an injury affect that this week? Throughout the course of this season, will it all even out? We'll find out. According to those numbers, it's not as big of a difference as it feels. That said, I think if you look at the raw numbers, just looking at PFF, see if I can find it. And so the problem is those zone reads. It is very hard to, if you're just looking at the numbers, it is hard to decipher, why did that become a handoff? Because he read it out that way. Why did that become a keeper? Because he read it out that way, as opposed to just saying, we're going to force the football into Sellers' hands as a runner. How are opponents, to Beamer's point, approaching South Carolina differently? Did Illinois give everybody a little bit of a game plan last year? I think all those things are factors. You do also have that comment, and I'm going to paraphrase. I was trying to pull it up. I tried to Google it, but now all that pops up, unless you look really hard, is the comments from yesterday about the conspiracy theory. But Shula's comment early on, he did not say, we want to run Sellers less. But that comment about wanting him to kind of read out the defense in the pocket, we want to run because we want to, not because we're forced to. Again, paraphrasing. Did he not? He didn't literally say run less, but you can interpret that different ways. So that's kind of where that comes from. My point last week, and everybody can, you can go back and look at it. My point was not even necessarily they have to run Sellers more. I think at times they do. My point was use Sellers more. Passing game and running game. Like a lot of the early game, the early season approach on offense resulted in, whether it was a hard handoff or a read into a handoff, resulted into what appeared to be what you would call more traditional running game, counting on your offensive line to create holes and counting on your running backs to run through them. My point was, hey, if that's not going to work, you either have to run Sellers or you have to throw on first down more and just get him involved in the game more, which, guess what, is what we saw to start the game against Vanderbilt. The offense looked the best it has all season long in those first two drives, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I'm rambling. You take over, Chris.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, because Beamer brought this up again, nobody's telling, nobody in the building has said we need to run Sellers less. I think he was kind of going back to those Shula comments, which I do remember Shula saying we want Lenoris to run on our terms, is an actual phrase that he used. I think it's all going back to the bowl game where there's this idea that has come about that in the last 4 games, the staff has instructed Lenoris not to run, or that they're going into a game saying we're not going to run him. I think the numbers show, Wes, exactly what you said about the SC State game. You can look at the eyeball test, you can look at the numbers. They didn't run him as much. To your point, they didn't need to. I mean, what if they're
I don't think you want to.
Yeah, you don't want to. What if you'd run Sellers and he got hurt? What would the conversation be there? Why are we running him against SC State, right? That would be the thing. And if you look at the actual numbers against SC State, he's got 2 zone runs per PFF and 2 scrambles, no gap scheme runs, so no power, no counter. They didn't run him in that game. That is different than saying the offensive staff has decided we're not running Lenoris Sellers. It's a game-to-game thing. For the purposes of this season, we have a 1.5 game sample size of running Lenoris Sellers because you just weren't going to do it as much against SC State. First game against Virginia Tech, you had 5 gap scheme runs. I think the first touchdown was a gap scheme run. If you go back and look last year, Old Dominion ran some power, ran some counter, right? Ran some zone read. That stretch of games with Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Missouri, even Clemson, they lined up at times, and Dow Loggins is calling a power play or a counter for Lenoris Sellers designed to get him the football. We've seen a little bit of that this year, but we've only seen 1.5 games. I think, to your point, we expect to see more of that. I think USC had that in the game plan against Vandy. We didn't get to see him in the whole game, obviously, because he was out. So I think we will see more of that this year. So I think it's kind of, like you said, Wes, like some semantics at play here as to what exactly we're talking about. I do think Sellers will continue to be in the game plan so long as he's healthy, and I think we'll probably see him running the football more. If he doesn't the rest of the year and the offense still struggles and you're not seeing the staff, make a point to get the ball in his hands and involve him more, as you said, in the run and passing game, then there's a bigger problem. I don't think we can look at the 1.5, 2.5, whatever, however you want to count it, games and say they're not running Sellers. I think there's some context that's needed to all of that is the point.
Yeah, I think sample size is certain, and that's what you're saying, but just to frame it up, I think there's definitely some sample size aspects to this conversation. But yeah, how coming off of an injury, assuming, if he plays this week, how does that factor into things? You look at, I would argue he was not really himself completely against Ole Miss last year when he was coming off the injury. Not that it's, apples to apples necessarily, but how does that affect things moving forward? There's a lot at play here. I think, you have a lot of frustration with the fan base because they feel like we've had the offensive conversation for 4+ years now. I get it. Frankly, I get that completely. I also think you have there's this feel that the offense was just terrible all last year as well, which frankly just was not the case. And you're talking about a team last year that, as we saw, had a really, really good defense. And so there were some complementary aspects. There's some aspects, too, where if you just look at raw points per game last year, the defense probably had a few more pick sixes or a few more fourth down stops than maybe other teams. But there's also a sense of, let's not screw this up on offense when our defense has put us in a position to win this game. So I don't put last year's offense in the same category as I would like year one under Satterfield when, a lot of times it was just not good. Some of that's personnel, though. Look at the difference in the personnel last year compared to that team. And I don't know. It does. I mean, it feels like we're in the twilight zone, though, in terms of just hearing and seeing and saying the same things from, people who watch the team.
We'll take a look ahead at Missouri coming up next. Again, I'm going to be talking to Gabe DeAirman of Power Mizzou coming up at the end of the hour, as well as start turning our attention to South Carolina's week number 4 opponent in the Missouri Tigers. The Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Wednesday on the game.
All right, guys, let me tell you about our friends at Krantz Cooling, KrantzCooling.com. That's Krantz with a K, cooling with a K.com. Like I told y'all last week, I now have firsthand experience with Krantz coming to my home as well. We had to deal with what nobody ever wants to deal with. That is your AC going out and needing it to operate, obviously. So I called up our friends at Krantz, 803-672-3224. Got a brand new unit, had an excellent just experience in terms of dealing with all the people that you're going to deal with as they take care of your issues. They're going to take care of yours just like they took care of ours. If you don't like talking on the phone, go to KrantzCooling.com, hit the schedule and appointment button at the top. And then what you can do also, hit the specials, hit the financing button. If you don't want to pay for all this up front, they have 0% APR for up to 60 months on qualifying equipment, so you don't have that massive upfront cost. Call them today, 803-672-3224.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Again, Gabe DeEhrman of Power Mizzou coming up in about 10 minutes here as we'll get some insight into Missouri ahead of this weekend's matchup out in Como. This was a game that I think we all looked at prior to the season as one that was going to be tricky. Certainly in the first 5 games, you thought this was maybe the first opportunity for South Carolina to trip up. Obviously, that ended up happening this past weekend against Vanderbilt, so your margin for error got even smaller as you head into Missouri this upcoming weekend. And this is a Missouri team that I think is a lot better than we expected through the first couple weeks. Now, they played Louisiana and Central Arkansas in 2 of those games, but they did have a quality win and a good comeback against Kansas 2 weeks ago, and Bo Perbula looks like he's leading the offense well. Ahmad Hardy run the ball extremely well. This is a team that is going to be dangerous coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, it is, and be curious to see what Gabe has to say when we get him on here in a second. And guys, I kind of looked at this as, hey, they're going to lose Brady Cook. They're going to take a step back. You know, I still got a little bit of that. It's Missouri in my head. Like, are they going to be able to replace the talent they lost? You lose Luther Burden as well. So far, so good for them, man. Like, this team may be better than last year's. And I think when you look at that scheme, when you look at that offensive system, there is I don't want to say it's plug and play, but it's kind of like you don't necessarily have to have that 5-star quarterback type for it to work and for it to look good. And, you know, I think for the job that they've done just plugging Ahmad Hardy in there, it's a unique scheme in that, you know, teams run this stretch zone stuff. You'll see it from time to time. But, man, Missouri majors in it. Like, this is what they do. And they just, they make you be so perfect up front defensively. And if you're not, they just crease you. And we've seen South Carolina, you know, frankly, struggle with the running game. Even last year, as good as that South Carolina defense was, in the second half, it looked like Missouri was about to do it again. And a big part of it was just their success with that stretch zone, getting out on the outside, but then being able to cut it back and having a running back that really understands what that scheme is all about. And, man, you want to talk about transfer portal acquisitions that have just worked out. They got a great one in Hardy. They got a great one at the quarterback position. Chris, I'll go to the defensive side. A couple of guys, you know, you and I were pretty familiar with, really familiar with Josiah Trotter coming in from West Virginia. He's been flowing to the football, man. Looks like a baller out there to me. Damon Wilson, somebody that South Carolina kind of at least checked in on late in the transfer portal window from Georgia. He's a starter. Looks the part to me, man, of SEC edge rusher. You know, credit to Missouri. Like, they went out and they spent in the portal, and it seems like they had some good evaluations there too.
Yeah, the good news is you don't have to deal with Brady Cook. You don't have to deal with Luther Burden or Theo Weiss. That's probably about it. You know, like the bad news in terms of this matchup is much more, right? You're going on the road. You're going to the other Columbia. It's always a tough place to play. We'll talk about this with Gabe, but I actually talked to Gabe on the phone yesterday, and he brought up an interesting point in that, like, you just never know. Like, sometimes in this series, the team that you don't think is as good going into the game ends up winning. It's just a weird game at times, but you're right. Like, Missouri always has dudes. I mean, on defense, you go back to the Gary Pinkel era. It seems like they kind of just plug in, insert defensive end or two and defensive tackles that are just going to give you grief up front constantly. And they do a great job administering their offense. And Eli Drinkwitz is very patient. He doesn't mind stretching out a game and kind of playing the long game within the game. I think Missouri guys, Nate Noel last year, who was another transfer back that they've got, no longer with them, but he went for 150 last year. I think that was the only running back that went for 150 against the Gamecocks defense last season. So they've got Bo Perbula, who is not Brady Cook in terms of his proven play. This will probably be the toughest test that they faced against South Carolina's defense, but he's very mobile. He can run. They've still got dudes on offense. Ahmad Hardy's a really good back, and I think, to your point, Wes, the offensive system really, really stresses you. This has been a bad schematic matchup over the last few years for South Carolina. Can they make some adjustments to where they can play the run better and make Pabula throw the ball down the field? And then, of course, on the other side, we'll keep diving into this aspect the whole week. Can you go score some points offensively to take the burden off of your defense and not have to rely so much on them?
We'll get a look at the other side of things from Gabe Dierman of Power Mizzou coming up next as we wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Wednesday here on The Game.
Our friends over at Game Day Men's Health can help you as a man reclaim your vitality by optimizing hormone levels. They specialize in TRT or testosterone replacement therapy, which will help boost your energy and strength. And they're a lot different than other clinics that do similar things. They have in-house labs that can deliver your results in just 15 minutes. They're conveniently located in Northeast Columbia near I-77 and Two Notch Road. Comfortable man cave style clinics with TVs and refreshments while you wait. Also great, they don't use any long-term contracts. Flexible plans tailored to your needs. TRT tests available to check your levels with absolutely no obligation, and then ongoing monitoring committed to your success with expert guidance. You can get started by going to GameDayMen'sHealth.com/North-Columbia. Again, located just off I-77, or give them a call, 803-265-3161.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your Wednesday wrapping up the show as we start to turn our attention ahead to the weekend as Carolina will have its first true road game of the season, taking on the Missouri Tigers out in the other Columbia. To talk about those Tigers, joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines is Gabe Dierman of Power Mizzou. Joining us once again, Gabe, we do appreciate your time as always. We were just talking about it there in the last segment. You know, this Missouri team lost so much, especially offensively, from a year ago. We didn't know how good they were going to be, and albeit, you know, Central Arkansas and Louisiana aren't the toughest opponents, but how they looked against Kansas a couple weeks ago, I think, is an indication that this team is definitely maybe right in line with those past couple teams that did win double-digit games. How are you feeling about what you've seen so far out of Mizzou this season?
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about everything Missouri lost, and I think that was kind of the national opinion was look how much they lost, especially on offense. I mean, Armand Nimbo, first-round pick, Luther Burden, second-round pick, Theo Weiss, Brady Cook. But the truth was Missouri wasn't very good on offense last year. Like, they had a whole bunch of names, but they didn't have to replace that much production. Their offense just never really got on track last year. Bo Prabula came in from Penn State at quarterback, and look, it's 3 games. You mentioned the competition, and that's absolutely a factor. I feel fairly confident that this is the best Missouri's been at quarterback since Drew Lock left in 2018. He has made every throw you want him to make. He's athletic. He can run the ball. Hasn't had to do that a lot in the last couple games, but we know it's a part of his game. Ahmad Hardy, second in the country in rushing. Kevin Coleman, he should have been an all-SEC pick at Mississippi State last year. He wasn't. He's got 24 catches for 258. They finally started using the tight end. Brett Northfleet has 3 touchdowns. I mean, it all has kind of worked on that side of the ball so far, and Kirby Moore is getting some national recognition for the job he's done. And obviously, things get a lot tougher starting Saturday night.
Hey, Gabe, it's Wes. Appreciate you hopping on, man. I was about to ask you about Bo Prabula, but you already took that one from me, so we'll move along to some other things. What is it? You watch it every single week. What is it about this stretch zone, outside zone, whatever you want to call it, that when it's really cooking, that just can give defenses fits? And, I mean, we've seen it with South Carolina, even what I think was a great South Carolina defense last year, game to game. As that second half wore on, it really seemed like Missouri was about to stun them and Williams-Brice behind a really good rushing attack. I think Chris mentioned earlier, I don't think anybody else went over 150, like the Mizzou back did last year against South Carolina. Just what is it about this scheme that when it is cooking, it gives people trouble?
Yeah, it is really Eli Drinkwitz's calling card. I mean, when he came here, we all kind of thought, hey, this young hotshot offensive coordinator, he's going to throw the ball all over the place. And the truth is, it's been the running game. I mean, his first year here, Larry Roundtree, in that shortened COVID season, had 800 yards rushing. And then he goes to Tyler Beatty, who breaks the single-season school rushing record. And then he goes to Cody Schrader, a former D2 kid who breaks the school rushing record and finishes 8th in the Heisman. Last year, it's Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll combined no matter who's been back there, they have always run the ball really well. And I think what this Missouri team has that maybe past teams haven't had, like the line has done pretty well. Don't get me wrong. You don't run for that many yards without good blocking. But Ahmad Hardy does so much of this on his own. Last year he ran for over 1,000 yards after contact. This year he leads the country with 330 yards after contact and 28 missed tackles forced. I mean, he's a guy that even when the blocking's not there, like some of his best runs this year have been for no gain or 1 yard. You look and he should lose 4 yards because there's 2 guys there in the backfield, and somehow he drags them back to the line of scrimmage. So he just gets every yard available there. And then obviously, hey, when the blocking's there, he's capable of a little bit more. But this really is what Drinkwitz wants to do offensively.
Gabe, it's Chris. Thanks for taking time, man. So let's look at the defense. I mean, we were talking earlier about a couple guys that South Carolina was involved with during the portal process, and Damon Wilson at edge and Trotter at linebacker. You also looked at the fact, man, I feel like a theme in this game and for Missouri is just every year they've got dudes on the defensive line, that cause problems for the opposition. Tell us about the defense this year, just how it's shaped up. They lost some guys. They brought some guys back. They plugged in these couple transfers. What does that side of the ball look like through the first few games? How does it project out to this game?
Yeah, it really has been Missouri's calling card, like you said, is that front four. And I told everybody that I talked to this preseason, like Missouri really believed it had defensive ends that could stack up with any in the country. And the coaches felt like they might have the best front seven in the league. Now, look, there's a long way to go for that to be the case. Damon Wilson has, 3 sacks. I think in 43 pass rushes, he's got like 9 pressures, so he's getting on the quarterback more than 20% of the time. He's the headliner, but Zion Young on the other side, Chris McClellan inside is really good. I think linebacker's their deepest position. I mean, they've got Trotter. Tristan Newsom came back on the Diego Pavia rule, which, by the way, now apparently is just infinity. He's just going to come back every year. So that's good news for guys that just never want to quit playing college football. Khalil Jacobs is a guy who was hurt in Game 5 last year after being a transfer from South Alabama. They really like him. And then Nick Rodriguez is their 4th linebacker. And Missouri said coming out of spring football, he had the best spring of anybody on the team. The defense has been a little bit tougher to judge than the offense because – they've faced, I'm actually going to write a story today. They've faced the second fewest plays of anybody in America. In 3 games, opposing offenses have only run 147 plays. So they just haven't been out there. Missouri has been very good on defense, but the problem is they have given up big plays. And it was the problem they faced last year. They would be really good like 95% of the time, but then one 50-yard play can change a game. They gave up an 84-yard run to Louisiana, which obviously didn't matter. It was like, 35-3 at the time, so it's not that big a deal. But they gave up some big passing plays to Kansas. They outgained Kansas by almost 400 yards, and somehow that was a game they were trailing with 10 minutes to go, and that was because of the big plays. And so that's probably the one thing Missouri has to figure out. When you make a mistake at safety, it costs you points, and Missouri has some safeties that get a little bit over aggressive.
Again, talking to Gabe DeAirman of Power Mizzou here on the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. As you look into this game this upcoming weekend, of course, you got to see a South Carolina team pull off one of its best comebacks last year with the last-second touchdown to Rocket Sanders and a huge victory that was part of that stretch run of 6 games at the end of last year that got them at least on the bubble of the college football playoff. And it's kind of a 180 where right now the offense is struggling, and we've been talking about it all week long with the concerns coming away from the Vanderbilt game. When you look at this South Carolina team, what stands out to you, and how do you think they match up with Missouri coming up this weekend?
So coming into this year, I thought my opinion of South Carolina was that they might be a little bit like Missouri was last year, which is that team that kind of came out of nowhere and caught everybody's attention and finished strong. And so they got all this off-season, hype and love. And then that's hard to handle for a team that's never been there, right? Missouri had it happen to them. They got blown out by A&M and then blown out by Alabama, and that really ended any playoff hopes they had. I mean, had a nice 10-win year and all that, but it did fall a little bit short of what people thought. And I wondered coming in, hey, is South Carolina ready to be the hunted rather than being the hunter? And I don't know if that's what has held them back or not. It might just be much more basic of, hey, they haven't played very well and they're having trouble picking up a new offense. If you look at this game, I think 2 months ago, guys, I think South Carolina would have been favored in this game by 3 to 5 points. And now it's Missouri by 12, and everybody is just burying South Carolina. And logic tells me Missouri should win this game and maybe win it comfortably, but I've seen this series too much. Like, how many times in this series since 2012 has the team you thought would not win this game won this game? It seems to happen more often than not, and I think this is kind of the reckoning for South Carolina. I mean, it's, the old Yogi Berra thing, it's getting late early around here. Like, yeah, 1 game, no big deal. 2 games, no big deal. You get into week 3 and 4 and you continue to struggle, it's no longer early. That just becomes who you are. So I think this is huge for South Carolina if they want to be. I mean, I don't know. You guys would know this better than I do. I think it's probably, hey, let's shelf the playoff talk for a little while. Let's just try to play well and win a football game and see where it goes. But if they want to be anywhere near what everybody thought they were going to be, I think they have to get a turnaround and probably do it this week.
Yeah, for sure. Fair. Definitely. Gabe, I'm curious, being around the Missouri program like you are, I never thought of Missouri as necessarily being one of the programs that was going to have all the resources to go spend in terms of NIL and have all this success in the transfer portal. But outside looking in, I mean, I think they've done about as good a job as anybody of using the portal to upgrade the overall talent, to upgrade the depth, to go get some impact guys on offense and defense. But being there like you are and covering it on the day-to-day, is Missouri spending – like NIL-wise, the way it kind of feels like they are from the outside looking in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's Texas Tech,
right,
but I don't think anybody's Texas Tech. But they've been they were so far out in front of this. And Eli Drinkwitz deserves credit for getting the money. But Desiree Reed-Francois, who used to be the AD and now she's at Arizona, deserves a lot of credit too. The administration here really got out in front. Like, you see all these just ridiculous state laws across the country that basically say we can do anything we want and you can't come tell us we can't. I mean, the first one was written by Missouri and was passed. I mean, I read the law and I said, well, this is insane. I've never seen anything like this, and now everybody has it. So they deserve credit on that front. And Drinkwitz had a top 15 or 20 recruiting class last year, and 4 of the top 6 kids in that class took Missouri's money, didn't really play that much last year, and now they're somewhere else. Jaylen Brown's there at South Carolina. Kewan Lacey's the number 2 rusher in the SEC down at Ole Miss. Williams Winery's up at Nebraska, and Courtney Crutchfield, a wide receivers at Arkansas. And so Drinkwitz really kind of recalculated things after that and said, you know what? I'm not going to spend these ridiculous amounts of money that it takes to get these 4- and 5-star freshmen if they're not ready to come in here and help us win day one, because I'm not going to pay them all this money and then have them leave and go be good somewhere else after I develop them for a year. So Missouri's recruiting class this year, I think they've got 10 commitments. They're all 3 stars, and Missouri fans don't even really care because they're going, cool, he just goes in the portal every year and gets kids that come in here and are really good, whether they're from other SEC programs, whether they're from the Big Ten, whether they're from the Sun Belt. I mean, I think, Lane Kiffin has the reputation, and he's done a great job in the portal, but I would put what Drinkwitz has done in the portal right up there with what Lane's done.
Last 60 seconds here, Gabe. Do you think Drinkwitz enjoys the title of maybe being one of the most quotable coaches in the SEC right now?
I hope so. I enjoy covering him. I mean, you go in, like I asked him about, with the injury reports and all that, and I would fully anticipate starting tonight. Lenora Sellers is questionable for 3 straight days, and it means absolutely nothing. So I asked him, hey, do you guys, are these working, and do you pay attention to these? And I really didn't ask because of what Lane Kiffin did with Austin Simmons last week. He said, I'm not going to get into Lane's business, but these reports are not for us. They're for another industry around college football. You just ask Eli a question and you never really know what he's going to say. So I think it's fun, and I kind of like this series because I think what you've got is 2 coaches that if they're yours, you really like them. And if they're anybody else's, they're, I think, pretty disliked probably universally among other teams.
I think a lot of people in the Gamecock fan base would probably agree with that one, Gabe. We appreciate your time, man. Looking forward to this weekend.
Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate you, man.
All right, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, that'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. We'll take a look back at last year's Missouri game coming up tomorrow as we get closer to this matchup coming up this weekend as your Wednesday rolls along here on the Game.